Welcome back to Veterans of the North. I'm your host, Trent Dilks with the Disabled American Veterans. And joining me today is Bob Brix, World War II Navy veteran. Bob, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Grew up, I believe, are you Minnesota born and raised, or are you a transplant?
North Minneapolis.
North Minneapolis, okay.
Yes.
All right, how was that? What kind of area is that as you're growing up?
Well, it was a great area.
Yeah.
You know, I had many positive experiences, like going to the movies on Saturday for 10 cents,
Yeah.
I lived close to West Broadway.
Okay.
Same block as West Broadway went through.
Yeah.
And went to church there, Catholic church. And high school was North High. And attended North High, graduated there in January of 42.
Now, at that point, it's connected, right? It's better connected by rail, I believe. Did you have more easy access in and out of the cities by train or rail car?
Now today, you mean?
No, back then. Was there rail available in North Minneapolis?
Oh, streetcars.
Streetcars, that's what I was looking for.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember, I think it was my grandpa was from up in the Anoka area.
Yeah.
Yep, and he would talk about the streetcars, and then he thought it was a little bit funny that they had seen them, he'd seen them ripped out, and then the big push to reconnect everything by streetcar or light rail now, I guess they use, but he said it kind of came full circle. You got to see the.
Yeah.
So you graduate in 1942.
January. We had
January.
half-year graduations.
Oh, okay. Do you remember, I guess the same question I had asked before, Pearl Harbor?
Yes, I do.
Where were you at? And
Distinctly.
yeah.
I was in, customarily on Sundays, we took a ride. My mother, we would go and we had a alley going through and a garage on the alley, and then go around the block and go to the front and pick up my mother. And of course, that's what we were doing. And as we were going down the alley, the radio came on, and they announced that Pearl Harbor was being attacked. I can remember my dad. Oh, he just kind of turned white, and he said, "That's not real good." And I think he was thinking of the family.
Yeah.
There were three. I came from a family with 3 boys and then a girl, and I was the third boy. So picked up my mother and took our customary ride.
Yeah. Do you remember what the general mood was immediately following that? Is it because are you 17 then when Pearl Harbor happens? Is that right?
I suppose, yeah.
Right around there.
Yeah.
Do you remember what the general sense of the people around you was? Was it that there was that they were going to get sent, that they were going to get ready for it? Or?
Well, yeah, we heard the president give a talk and things like that, but I can't really recall adverse reaction.
Yeah. Yep.
I can't recall that. It was a kind of a period where we knew what was going to happen. We were going to have children I was a child.
Yeah.
Go into the service and so forth.
Yeah.
That my dad could see.
So your older brothers, do they join up? Are they drafted?
My oldest brother did join. He was a captain in the Minneapolis Fire Department, and he felt that they needed him. I don't know. My second brother did, and Bill was in the invasion of the Normandy invasion.
Okay.
Aboard a ship as a fire department guy. And my brother Dick, I think he was drafted. He had 2 children. And of course, the children don't hold you back anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So he was drafted. And he was in Europe, and he was in that division where they were surrounded by the Germans, and the German general wanted them to surrender, and the general that was commanding the enclosed encampment of my brother replied with nuts.
Nuts,
Do you
yeah.
remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the unit that my brother was in.
Okay, is that the 101st?
I
I think it might be. I think it might be. That's an amazing story. And so then you join up, or you drafted?
I joined in December of '42
Okay. Navy.
with Navy.
Yeah.
I thought have a nice bed to sleep in every night, and that's why I didn't want to be in the Army.
Yeah. Yep. And then the tricks on you because they make you a corpsman. And,
Went through school as boot camp, we called it.
yeah.
Boot camp, and then to be a med tech, and ended up at Seattle Naval Hospital, and from there to Whidbey Island Station. And then they sent a bunch of us to the Marines.
To the Marines to become
And
corpsmen.
yeah, ended up there at Camp Elliott, and then Camp Pendleton.
Okay.
And that was the big camp,
Yeah.
Pendleton. We had naval training there by Higgins boats at Oceanside.
Okay. So then you end up with the Marines.
Mm-hmm.
Do you end up going overseas with the Marines then, or?
Yes, I was sure overseas. 47 days aboard a troop ship.
Yeah.
It was so crowded, we had 2 meals a day standing up. And no showers.
Oh.
Well,
no
well, we had showers, excuse me. Ocean water.
oh.
Try to wash yourself with salt water.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we of course, 47 days was 1 week in Pearl Harbor, 1 week in Eniwetok. So it took time to get where we were going.
Yeah.
So then we ended up on Guam.
Okay.
And Guam at that time had previously been our island, but the Japanese had taken it over. And then we went in there and pushed the Japanese out again. The Mariana Islands, Saipan, Rota, and Guam.
You okay?
So we were in training there for about a month, and then off to Iwo Jima.
Okay.
And I never was in front lines,
Yeah.
but I was on the shore handling the wounded as they came, stretchers, and getting them on a Higgins boat to take them back to the ship that brought us there. And so finally the island was necessary because we were losing too many of the B-29s that were bombing Japan.
Yeah.
And not only losing the B-29s, but losing qualified air people to fly them.
Iwo Jima becomes a heck of a fight because they knew it was a strategic island too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a tough one to get through.
Right.
Yeah.
And it ended up, of course, we used bulldozers to seal up the caves that they had. I mean, after we kept on trying to get
Yeah.
a foothold.
Yeah.
And as we approached the island and with all of that equipment, the Japanese started jumping off the north end of the island into the rocks to kill themselves.
Yeah.
They did not believe in surrendering.
No,
And they had little regard for those of us that surrendered, because we're not supposed to do that in warfare. You fight until you're killed or what?
and I had just seen something on this actually about the brainwashing from the Japanese leadership.
Oh,
Of
yeah.
If they take you hostage, even to their civilians, if they take you hostage, you know, it's worse than death, and just some tragic things that took place there.
That's right. That's the way they were in the war.
Yeah, yeah,
And they had no regard for prisoners because, like I said, you should have surrendered.
Well, and at one point, I believe I had heard medics were a target.
But yes, we didn't wear any insignia on the equipment that we had.
Yeah, because they knew if they could take out a medic, they wouldn't be there to help save the lives of the
That's
wounded.
right.
Yeah.
And so we were with no emblems on our helmets or anything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So coming back from Guam, coming back from Iwo, then on Guam we went into training to go into Kyushu, the southernmost island of Japan.
Okay.
And that's what we were doing from that time we got back from Iwo Jima, which, by the way, I had a real good friend who did serve in the combat there. And not only did he serve, all of the commissioned officers were gone, were wounded or killed. All of the non-com officers were killed or gone, and he ended up being in charge of a company of Marines
Okay.
as a medic. And he was able to get them out of the pickle they were in and get back to the lines. For his military action, he won the Navy Cross on the field.
Wow.
Yeah. But the poor guy, it was just too much for him. After the war, he was a good friend of mine. After the war, he went back to Texas. He came from Lubbock, Texas. His name was Denver Audie Anderson. And his sister wrote me, could I help him with a problem that he had with being in the service, which I did. I sent letters to the congressmen or whatever, and to our senators, trying to help get him some attention. Well, he committed suicide. She wrote and told me he couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
The nightmares and everything.
Brought those demons home, and
Yep.
and at the time, I think some talked about shell shock.
Yeah.
But what we would later come to know as post-traumatic stress isn't really understood or recognized.
That's correct.
Yeah.
At that time, it wasn't.
And
As you know, like George Patton, you guys get going to forget that you're okay.
yeah,
You
that's
know.
kind of that tough guy,
You
suck it
bet.
up, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, that's unfortunate. He sounds like he did some great things while he was there, and it took a lot for us to learn what we needed to do, and we're still struggling with it. We're still struggling to help everybody come home. So,
Right.
he sounded like a good man though, and he led some Marines out of trouble. You got to trust Doc. That's always been.
Yeah.
That was true when I was in as well. You trust your medics. So.
Yeah.
Iwo Jima is Iwo Jima, now remind me, is this the one with the famous flag?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the second flag, the reproduction of it is where they take the famous picture, I believe, is the.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was I don't know, that one made a lot of news and really generated that picture, I guess, was really what a lot of people remember about Iwo Jima, and just a hard fought battle. And so now you're training for the next island to invade?
No more islands.
Okay.
We were in training for, Japanese islands.
Yeah.
The southernmost island of Japan.
Okay.
And that's, of course, coming off of the bomber that bombed Japan came off of the Guam
Okay.
and came back to Guam. And Enola Gay, that was the name on the bomber.
So do you remember that, like where you were, the reaction?
Well, it wasn't. It was such a short time after. It was a bang and a bang. Oh, war is over.
Just kind of.
The emperor called in and his generals and said, "That's it. We can't go on."
Yeah.
So the war was over, and boy, we celebrated then.
Oh, you have to. I mean,
Yeah.
the stress of what it was going to look like if you
Yeah.
had to invade the Japanese homeland was.
And we still had Japanese on the island. They'd go into the garbage cans at night for their sustenance. And so we had, we swept the island, at least twice. When I say swept the island, formed a line, went through the brush, the trees, and all the stuff there. I contacted a skin rash that I'm still treating.
Oh wow. Something on one of the islands. Gotcha. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
The doctor there said, well, I was in the hospital for a month. My arms and legs swelled up and everything. So it was not too good.
No.
So he said, well, that's the best we can do now with the equipment we have.
Yep.
But I would advise you, don't ever give a blood transfusion
Yeah.
because it's carried in my blood.
Oh. Okay.
So don't ask me for any blood.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be glad to give it to you. Then you can enjoy what I have.
And so the bombs dropped. The emperor surrenders. What do you do after that? Are you on to something else, or do you get to go with the first wave home?
I was a real good friend of the chaplain, Father Romulo Eggleston Philbin was his name.
Okay.
And we built a chapel, and I was helping him do that. And then we between hammering and all that stuff, why don't we go down to Admiral Nimitz's headquarters for his to go to his bar down there? Well, of course, I'm an enlisted man. He was a major, and he says, "Here, I'll give you my old captain's pins, and we'll go down there." So we went down to Nimitz's headquarters and went to the bar. Of course, they were saluting me, and I was saluting them back. I had to.
So, for the purposes of that trip to the bar, you get to be a captain. Yeah.
No, yeah. So, yeah, that was. I thought that would get you laughing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, everything wasn't all that bad.
No. No.
And of course, then with the war being over, you could go home on points. Well, we didn't go home on points. I was in the hospital, like I said earlier, and the draft came through for the medical people that I was with to go to China.
Okay.
And of course, they went by ship. Well, then maybe 2 weeks later, the doctor said, well, I'm going to discharge you from the hospital. Okay, so now what? Well, we'll give you your papers, and you find your way to Tianjin, China.
Okay.
So I went down to the airport, and what have you got going to China today? And so it was a B-29 maybe, I don't know. But they had some planes going. well, we have one going to Shanghai. And I said, well, that's getting there anyway. Let's try it. So here I am, 18, 19-year-old guy, going to China. And we landed at Shanghai. You remember if you were Shanghaied.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
Yep.
So I was Shanghai. So I stayed there for 2 nights, and then an airplane to Tianjin, stopping at Tsingtao, which is where you could buy beer, and we even have some of that beer. You go to a Chinese restaurant, some of the better restaurants have beer from Tsingtao. And so I got to go there, and then to Tianjin, which is the port city of the capital of China, Canton. And a lot of people don't realize that China, when it was a very weak nation, the major powers of the world sliced out pieces of China for themselves.
Yeah, the spheres of influence. Yeah.
And so we had that in Tianjin. I was in the British-controlled area. And in that area were British people, and then there was a French area where I could go for French cuisine, and Italian area, a Russian area, with these various concessions that they carved out of the port cities, trying to get their business or whatever it is,
Yeah.
So,
Sounds like China might not have been the worst posting in the world.
oh no, I had a good time there because I was alone.
Yeah.
The ship hadn't arrived with the rest of the guys.
So you're you're off on your own in China for a little
thank
bit.
heavens I had money so I could enjoy. Believe it or not, I bought a steak dinner for 15 cents American money.
Was it any good?
A steak dinner. It was very good.
Yeah.
We had to take baths at the bathhouse. That's another story. That's the only place you could wash yourself, so that's what I had to do. So we had, I was there for a month in China, and at that time, during that entire month, I never saw a gasoline-powered vehicle.
Oh, really?
Nothing. It was rickshaws, and bicycles, or walking. And of course, I took rickshaws to go around. And I told the rickshaw driver where I wanted to go. And here's Yi Ango Shotan Meng Zhuang Chao. I still remember what I told the guy. Well, one time I was coming back, and the driver didn't understand me. In China, they hardly understand each other.
So many different dialects.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And he didn't understand me, and so I motioned for him to go ahead. And as we were going down the street, I saw some kids playing, little children, and so I motioned to stop. And the children, anyone speak English? They looked at me. Yes, we speak English. Yeah. Well, I said, I can't tell my driver where I want to go, so I told them where I wanted to go. And they were speaking to each other in Russian, and then they spoke to me in English. and they spoke, and then I told them what to say, and they said in Chinese to the rickshaw driver so he could bring me back to where I belong.
I wonder how many different dialects and languages,
Well, those children spoke 3 languages.
Yeah, at least 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it was a nice place that I stayed at there. And I befriended the houseboy there, and he took me to various things to see and so forth. So, no, I had a good experience in China.
Yeah.
I will say this. our tanks went down to the gates at there was gates around the city. Went down there and was aiming at the other side, and the other side was communism, and they had their tanks, and they've had their tanks facing us. Now that went on for about a week. Nobody shot anything.
Yeah.
I think that the diplomats were busy talking, and I think that that's why we were sent to China, was if there was any engagement, that we were there to take care of the wounded or whatever.
Yeah.
So both tanks backed away from each other. So they must have settled it
I mean,
with diplomacy. It was never in any of the papers here. So
yeah. But what a kind of a foreshadow of what's to come, right? I mean, that tension between the what would become the communist nations.
yeah,
And eventually it boils over, and it's the Korean War.
yep.
Yeah, and with the communist backed China and,
Right.
and the Koreans, and it was kind of summed up right there in that interaction of those tanks that didn't make the headlines back home, but that's kind of the foreshadowing for how we expect the next several decades.
And then we were sent to our unit was sent to Japan, and I walked through Nagasaki. The captain gave us permission to go ashore. We went there by ship, and I walked through Nagasaki and with some of the guys,
Yeah.
And by gosh, the Army MPs came and said, "You're not allowed to do this." And they took us down to a Japanese jail, so I was in jail for until the captain of the ship came down and bailed us out.
So you had gone to see Nagasaki,
Oh, yeah.
and you end up in a Japanese jail from an American army.
Yeah.
Boy, that seems, taking the Army-Navy thing a little too far. Wow.
So I've had a lot of experiences.
Yeah. What did you get to interact at all with the Japanese people?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
How was that there for a nation that had just
Well,
surrendered? And
I had a lady that she showed me pictures of her daughter, and she was a real cute girl. And she was trying to peddle her daughter. I know that. I didn't want any part of it. But she brought me a bottle. I was in charge of a ward there. She brought me a bottle of sake in the morning every day.
well, she was trying to arrange a marriage, I think. Are you treating Americans? Are you treating Japanese people there? Are you
The Americans.
okay?
Yeah.
Where you were at, are you seeing any after effects of the bombs that had just been dropped? Later
yes.
on, all of the
Oh, yes. There was a Catholic church up on the hill in Nagasaki. And that was kind of ripped apart. I did meet the pastor of the church, Father Matthias Serrata.
Okay.
Yeah,
And so you see some of the damage from the bombs that
Yeah.
were dropped, and
right.
yeah,
And the people were in the streets peddling there aren't many Americans walking the streets there,
yeah,
but they were trying to peddle their possessions. And I bought a Japanese rice bowl that was engraved with gold and good china for $15 American money.
Were you able to get it home?
I got it home.
Okay.
Yeah. I forgot to say, in China, I bought some ivory things that I brought home, which is illegal today.
Yes. Yeah.
But I had chopsticks that were ivory, and I had a, letter opener with the point on it, the tip. And
Yeah.
that was ivory up to the handle, and that was ivory too, of course. But it going up to the handle, it was a small elephant carved down on the tip, kind of. And then that elephant got larger as it went up to the handle.
Oh.
It was all hand carved.
Yeah. So some pretty carving.
And I brought that home too.
Yeah.
And both items are featured over in the collection that Ron, last name escapes me. That's terrible. In Granite Falls.
Oh, okay. At the museum there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Well, that's
They wanted to see, in visiting, they knew I. So they documented them and recorded them, and then I got them back. I gave them to my daughter, and she's got them in a safe in the city someplace.
oh, very
So that's where they are.
yeah. I want to fast forward here. We're getting to the end of our time. I know you come back. We were talking earlier. You go to school. You become a pharmacist.
Yep.
How is that adjustment for you as you adjust into your post-war time into becoming a pharmacist? You do some schooling?
Well, I like music, and when I got home, I thought, well, I'll go to the GI Bill. Thank heavens we have the GI Bill,
Absolutely.
because it helped us all coming back. Something that we could do and get our minds off of being in the war. It was a great help. So I first decided I was going to go into music school at the university. And then I began to think to myself, I'm not that good at playing the piano. I love it, but I'm not that good to make a living on it.
Yeah.
I'll probably end up giving $5 lessons. And so I got to find something. Well, pharmacy, that's kind of medic related. Yeah, that kind of sounds good.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. 5-year course. Came out. And I always thought that a drugstore in a small town would be a good thing to do. I'd get away from the unions, which I had observed with my dad growing up. And now he had to deal with 5 different unions. And I didn't want any part of that. So I thought, well, I'll go to a small town. There will be no unions.
Okay. And so do you end up in this area? Is that how?
In Clara City.
You end up here in Clara City.
29 years
Okay.
I had the store. When I took the store over, it wasn't even doing $50 a day. When I sold it, I was doing close to $1,000 a day.
Okay. Built up quite the business. What's the secret? What's the secret to success in having your own business and in building something up like that?
Well, the gentleman ahead of me indicated you have to enjoy your work.
Yeah.
And that's true. I enjoyed my work. I had fun doing it. And the customers, gee, I enjoyed them.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
in a small town, I come from a small town, if you're a jerk, there's no hiding it, right? You have
Yeah.
to treat your customers with respect.
And when you'd get to know the customers, why, you could joke with them and have fun,
Yeah.
I had a lady come in the store that I knew real well. She wanted a cough syrup. So I took her back to where I had cough syrups, and I said, well, here's what she should be using. Well, Bob, that's X-Lax. I didn't ask for that. I want a cough syrup. Mrs. Jones, if I give you this and you take it, you won't dare to cough.
X-Lax is the cough deterrent, really.
Yeah, that worked out nicely. And the tampons that they would buy, I'd say, do you want to buy your firecrackers at today? You know, or I always had something to say,
Yeah.
you know, and just like you, and get them laughing. And since I've been here, I have customers that are over in the nursing side,
Yeah.
and they still remember the nice store I had and how much they liked trading there.
Yeah.
They still mention that to me.
Was there something lost as a pharmacist? Is there something lost as the small independent pharmacies kind of went away and everybody got a Walgreens and a nameless, faceless?
Well, hey, those big boys are finding it difficult to stay in business.
They are.
And I think a small town drugstore today, serving the people. I never turned down a telephone call. Bob, I forgot to get these pills. Can you? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Christmas Day, I went down to the store 4 or 5 times for things such as flash bulbs.
Mm-hmm.
They needed those to take pictures of Johnny by the tree, you know, or things like that.
I remember I had a great aunt who had a store. Not a pharmacy, but just one of those little everything. You could get a pair of winter boots, a gallon of milk, a loaf of bread,
Yeah.
and a rake.
Right.
And it was, smaller than the room we're sitting in here. And her store survived long after the big chains had moved in. And it was because all of the people knew her. She loved them. They loved her. And you know what? If you were short, she wasn't letting you leave without a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk. And she knew, in a couple of days, you would come back in and make it right. And that personal service, that personal touch.
That's right.
Until she didn't want to do it anymore. It wasn't, she never got pushed out. It was, I think that's something that maybe we've lost and people would still like to have is that community.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
I've got one last one for you here before we wrap. We have listeners that may be leaving the service or just kind of finding their footing using the GI Bill of their own. Do you have any advice, any words of wisdom for them as they start down that journey that you did with pharmacy school and things like that? Any words of wisdom for them as they leave the military and they come back into civilian life?
Well, I would say be active in your church, your respective church that you go to. Be active there, and you probably will have some young groups in your church. You'll meet a nice girl, and you don't meet nice girls down at the Sloppy Joe beer joint. So that's your contacts are important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Try to, your mother and dad, ask them where they met each other. I mean, that's one of the basis of working is having a spouse that is along the same lines as you're thinking it.
Yeah.
It takes you. So
You have to find a strong partner.
that's one of the things. Yes, and have a goal. What do you enjoy doing? You just like myself, $5 a day piano lessons or $500 a week for having a drugstore maybe.
Yeah. Find something you enjoy.
And watch your money. I mean, you don't have to go to Starbucks and have a $5 cup of coffee when you can have it at home for free.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, that's some solid advice. Bob, I sure do appreciate you joining us. I could have talked with you for hours more. I appreciate you sharing your story, and thank you so much for being with me today.
Well, thank you for asking me. My voice is a little raspy today.
When you need it, that's when it's going to be raspy. It's a guarantee.
Yeah.
I'm Trent Dilks. This is Veterans of the North. You can find this and all future episodes at davmn.org, davmn.org.